Hello and welcome in. I am Greg Smith, recruiting extraordinaire for Hail Varsity, joined by Steve Marik, staff writer also of Hail Varsity. We are back with another Thursday football video. I also figured out last time that I did one of these videos when we did the recruiting question video of the week with Aaron Sorensen, and I just did it again, that apparently I'm the only person that introduces everybody first and last name. So I am the formal one of the group. But that being said, Steve, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Greg. Yeah, first name, last name is both good with me. I'm good with just Steve as well. But yeah, you know what? You're the driver of this ship right now, so you can do whatever you want, Captain.
That is a dangerous place to be with me being the, the captain of the ship. But we'll see if I steer clear of any icebergs here. But what we wanted to get into today was wide receiver talk. There's been a lot of it this off season or this spring football session because there's just been so much to dive into. Plus, Nebraska has a new wide receivers coach in Mickey Joseph, who everybody loves hearing from, right? I think we've referenced this a couple of times in other videos as well, that Mickey is the number one person that people like to watch on our YouTube channel. So make sure you're liking and subscribing to these videos so that you can see them and get your alerts every time those videos are posted. But he talked again this week or earlier this week on Tuesday, and he had a lot to say, kind of a wide-ranging group of topics that he covered. We also heard from a couple of wide receivers in his room. We heard from Omar Manning, we heard from Alante Brown. So I want to start here, Steve. What stood out to you? And I know you have a story up on hailvarsity.com that just went live this morning about the wide receivers. So what stood out to you about what the wide receivers had to say this week?
The details, both Omar and Alante were very, very good interviews. I felt like they said some really interesting, detailed stuff, and they were talking about, what I really liked with Omar. He talked about kind of the post practice sessions that he and the quarterbacks are doing together, just running routes and throwing routes and getting the details of the route running down with the quarterbacks. I thought that was super interesting. My favorite part about what Omar said was, he was saying how he was running his over route after the post-practice sessions with Casey Thompson. And Omar said that he wanted to take his over route up the field more because he saw more grass. But after the play, Casey kind of went up to him and said, "Hey, we need to flatten that out. That might not be there in the game. Like, we need to flatten that out. Like, these are the defenses that I've seen." So I thought that was super, super interesting and very cool to hear that Casey Thompson is kind of taking the control, I guess, of the receivers and the routes and kind of helping them learn what he likes specifically about the route running. So that was super, super cool. And with Alante Brown, man, like, I just think he is such an impressive dude that I'd like to see more of. And he talked about, the film study, all the film study that he's been working on. Like, if the team has right before he goes to bed, he's watching film. And if the team has a film session tomorrow morning, he's getting up early, he's watching the film session, going to the team film session, and then afterwards he's even doing more film work. So that's a lot of film work for one guy, but he's taking it very, very seriously. And I really feel, just like listening to him talk, that he thinks that this is his season to go out and show what he can do and get the opportunities that he just hasn't had yet in his career here in Lincoln. So those are a couple of things that really stood out to me between Omar Manning and Alante Brown.
And what I find really interesting about that is I would assume, and this isn't even speaking out of turn, that Mickey Joseph would be very, very happy to hear that those are the things that stood out to people about what his guys in his room had to say. Because Mickey Joseph, I found, has been the two of the things that we have found out, because we knew coming into Nebraska, that he was an elite recruiter, right? And that was really all we kind of knew. And that was a lot of what we talked about. It was great for me as the recruiting guy here, right? But what we have also come to find out is that he is a hard-nosed coach. He definitely holds those guys accountable. All of them to a man have said that, any receiver that we've talked to. And the other thing that we have found out about him as a coach is that he is very detail-oriented. He wants you to have your details and the finer points of being a wide receiver down to a T. He wants you to do that extra work, and that is evidenced by something that came up this week with catching 5,000 footballs between the offseason and when spring ball started. And he was asked this week, Mickey Joseph was, about whether or not he felt like his room was to the point that he wanted, with kind of the finer points of crisp route running. It was a really detailed, and he said no. He said that we're not there yet. They are working towards it, but they're not there yet. And so on the flip side of that, to hear Omar Manning then say, "I'm working after practice with my starting quarterback, probably likely, cross your fingers, all that stuff,
Yeah.
wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that I'm working with him." Mickey Joseph has to love that. If you hear Alante Brown say, I have been all about the film room and I am in the film room all the time, because I think this is my time. I think there's two things about that that would really perk his ears up. One, obviously the details and him working, but also there's so much competition in that room that you do need someone to say, "Hey, it's my time. I'm going to go out there and do it. I'm not just going to sit around and wait," because it relates to a different thing that Mickey Joseph said that I found fascinating, which was he said that he told his guys that they are competing for roster spots out there, that the old days are gone where you can just kind of sit around for 3 years and not contribute. And then, it blossoms later on. If it doesn't crack for you right away, there might be somebody else coming in to take your spot. And I think that that's got people, I don't want to say on edge, is not that sounds bad, but I think that has guys on notice about the level of work that they need to do, which I just think is perfect for getting the most out of this wide receiver group.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that that I really liked hearing was both guys, Omar and Alante, were asked like, "Hey, which receivers are really catching your eye, like outside of yourself, basically?" And both of them said Trey Palmer, the LSU transfer. And so that's going to be just an interesting story. We haven't really talked with Trey much. It's going to be really interesting to talk with him and kind of see what he's like as a person and a football player. But yeah, they said they both, I can see Trey just kind of stepping in and being, because he has a relationship with his position coach, Mickey Joseph, already.
Right.
They both talked about that about how Trey and Mickey are just kind of close, and because they, Mickey has known Trey since he was 15 years old, basically, since he recruited him to the Bayou. So yeah, I think Trey Palmer is going to be a guy who's going to step onto the practice field and step onto the football field during the season and just like have this confidence about him. He's got that SEC confidence. Like, hey, I was at the SEC. I've catch passes there. I've returned punts and kicks in the SEC in big time, high profile games. I'm that dude. I think that kind of is what Trey Palmer is going to kind of be feeling about himself. And we'll see if it comes true this season. And see how much success he has. But yeah, it was really cool to see both guys mention Trey Palmer. And that kind of gives you an idea of maybe what that top three receiving core might look like with Omar Manning, Trey Palmer, and then Alante Brown. So, and of course, there's a lot of other guys in they're going to rotate. And Mickey Joseph says he wants 9 guys that he can feel comfortable go out there. Again, that's a huge number, but we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, Trey Palmer is a really interesting one that they both brought up.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things too, baked within all of that talk about Trey Palmer's confidence and Casey Thompson kind of showing guys the way, is that there was a void, and Scott Frost mentioned this. I think it was the very first spring football availability, like that after they had that very first practice, and then all the guys came, and then they had the round tables. And Scott Frost mentioned how there was just a void in leadership on the offense. When you lose the guys that they lost from last year's offense, you lose your 4-year captain, starting quarterback Adrian Martinez. You lose Cam Jurgens, you lose Austin Allen. Those are 3 big voices in that offense, and someone had to step up to be that. So I think that every time I hear that Trey Palmer is a guy that's helping to lead that wide receiver room, and that Casey Thompson is obviously leading the overall offense right now, we still maybe need a guy to emerge from the offensive line. And I suspect that will be something that comes up later today when we talk to Donovan Raiola, is what's happening with the leadership in your room. But those things to me are really encouraging, aside from just what's happening on the field, because I think if we've learned this over the years here, is that you have to have that leadership component, and there has to be someone that the team looks to when times are tough, whether it's to make a play on the field or to rally the guys. Like, that void has to be filled on this team. And it's one of the kind of, to me, interesting subplots about what's happening in this year's spring football, is that not only do you have all this competition between the guys, but you also have to have new leadership emerge within the team as well.
Yeah, and if you look at both those guys that talked yesterday, Omar Manning and Alante Brown, those are both guys entering their 3rd year in the program, I think. So, I mean, that's with like you said, the pieces that they lost from last year with Adrian, Cam, and then Austin at tight end. it's time for people to step up, and guys who have been here and done that. And again, it's their guys' third year in the program, so they're going to get every opportunity to be that kind of voice.
Yeah, that they absolutely are. And another thing too, with specifically with those wide receivers and being able to have a different style of coach in Mickey Joseph versus Matt Lubick, and that's been alluded to by also by all the different receivers. I think that it was Omar Manning mentioned about this Mickey Joseph's kind of making sure that he's correcting you on the spot and that he's always in his ear. And that Manning really is taken to that. He likes that he has a coach now that's really in his ear all the time. And Scott Frost has referenced Mickey not letting those guys get away with a lot of stuff. And I think that that's a key point too, is that you're just having a different style, a different style of coaching for all of these guys too.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something I wanted to touch on was Omar Manning. He was asked about that, about the coaching style of Mickey Joseph and how it differs from just years before. Right. Not throwing Mac Lubick under the bus or anything, but it's just a different style. It's just a different way to coach these guys. And Omar Manning really takes to how Mickey Joseph's kind of in your face every single rep. I'm telling you something either good or bad. And Omar Manning likes that. He said he hasn't had that since his JUCO days over at Kilgore College. So I'm just glad that, Omar is feeling good about things and everything. So it's a good story here.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that's going to do it for us this week. Make sure, like I said, you guys are liking and subscribing to the videos here on YouTube as we continue to bring you guys coverage of spring football and everything else that's happening around the world of Husker athletics. Also, for all of that information and more, you can also check out hailvarsity.com. Make sure you're subscribing, get the magazine, get the website, everything that we have going on there. And we will catch you guys next week.